Do, 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 do. By the by, did I show you? I think I did, but I'll show you again because it's been a little while. That in my Redbubble shop there is a design that I'm quite proud of.
I don't know if you did show me that.
Let's see if I can find it. I don't feel like signing in on my phone, so let's see if I can just find.
Ooh.
It is. Oh, that's a weird. Are you going to get used to? There we go.
Oh, it's the Chibi Eye of Sauron. I saw that on Instagram.
I call it Kawaii of Sauron.
Of course you do. Oh god.
But Good Omens. We were talking about Good Omens. So I years ago went to a flea market in Paonia and found Good Omens for like $2 at one of the tables, and I was like, yes, a loaner copy, because I had only just gotten a new me copy, and I was like, all right, this will be the one that I loan out, and then it doesn't matter if I never get it back because you never do.
Indeed.
I made it to the door of the flea market and ran into a friend who was like, why are you so excited? And I was like, I've got my loaner copy of Good Omens. And she was like, of what? And I was like, you gotta read it. It's so good. And she's like, okay, I will. And I never saw it again.
See, I have my Good Omens with Crowley on the cover from that set that was like the black and the white. And then I had a version, like a mass market copy that was my loaner copy, except when I loaned it to the person who never gave it back, they mentioned like, oh, this is like a kind of a, I've never seen, like they knew enough to like have seen it around, and they were like, I've never seen a cover that looked like this before. This must be one of the classic ones. And I was like, oh shit, is it? And then I never saw it again. But I found the same cover this past summer at a used bookstore in Washington, and I think it was the first American printings of the mass market. So I now have it again in trade. I have 2 copies, and neither of them is my loaner copy. So if anyone wants to borrow Good Omens from me, you can fuck off.
Like, I will go on half.com and buy you a copy rather than loan anyone a copy anymore. It's just, yeah.
Because that's what you're doing when you buy a loaner copy of Good Omens, is you are just buying a copy of Good Omens for the next person who has to borrow it.
Yep.
So, yes.
And mine never even made it home.
Yes. Good Omens is one of 2 books that I have multiple copies of. The other one is My Family and Other Animals. I have 3 copies of that. I will not be taking constructive criticism on this fact.
Farley Mowat?
Gerald Durrell.
We read both of those authors like back to back, or mom read them to us when we were kids, and so I always get them confused.
Gerald Durrell is the one that lived in Greece when he was a kid.
That's right, and that's what My Family and Other Animals is largely about, right?
That is what it's about.
With their menagerie.
With his menagerie. His family didn't care about the animals. He was the animal guy.
I need to read it again. It's been such a long time.
Well, fortunately for you, I have 3 copies. And I can loan you one.
Nice.
But yeah, and then he went on to be a naturalist and ran a zoo in Jersey. Not New Jersey, Old Jersey.
Old Jersey.
And he wrote books about that too. But
that's really cool.
And Farley Mowat was the Canadian dude who
wrote the Dog Called Mutt.
Dog Called Mutt, and the one about the owls. I can't remember what it was called.
Owls in the
Family.
Owls in the Family. And this is why I confused them. But yeah.
He also wrote People of the Deer, which I never actually got around to reading.
Yeah.
And that other one that had the really scary story in it about the Inuit like monster with only 1 foot. That actually that might have been in People of the Deer, now that I think about it.
Right. I read
Um,
Julie of the Wolves, but I never read People of the Deer.
well, Julie of the Wolves is not Farley Mowat.
No.
People of the Deer is about the time that he spent living with Native communities in Alaska and northern Canada.
Cool. Very, very cool. Much cooler than anything I have done. Although I'm pretty convinced that if I manage to get my deck into the hands of like uh Adam Savage, he'd be like,
He
it's
should
just
be. He
it's
better be.
conviction, right? It is so good. I think it's your turn, but I am going to check the YouTubeage.
I mean, I am also fine with reading. I'm gonna be honest, if it's not my turn, I would have to work on Jason's Christmas present, and I don't want to, so how about we say it's my turn?
All right, but do you remember where we are?
Yes.
Okay, cool. In that case, ah,
You know why I remember where we are? Because
why?
we were about to go back to Sam and Frodo.
Yay! That's right. We had just gotten to the point where we were like, yeah, Pippin was like, "Well, goodbye, world.
Goodbye, I have been crushed
Fuck
under a
you.
troll.
I am crushed, and I don't even fucking care anymore."
And the eagles have come, but I don't care. Goodbye forever.
Yep. Eagles.
Man,
Eagles.
we don't need no stinky eagle.
Eagles. All right, all right. Hang on. I'm just gonna. I don't want to work on that. I can't work on that. Um, that's hand stitching. I don't feel like hand stitching. We'll work on the dragon some more. It's not
Excellent.
actually a Christmas present, but maybe I need a break from Christmas presents. Did you ever think of that? Huh? Huh? Huh?
I did, yes. I frequently think of that around this time of year.
Yeah. Like I sure hope Robin's taking a break. Trust me,
Hmm.
I am.
Actually, usually what I think is Robin's not taking a break, and I wish she would.
Yes, I am. It's just that my breaks look like stressing out because I don't take breaks properly.
I was going to say, has it occurred to you that stressing out is not, in fact, a break? It is,
It
in fact, the opposite of a break.
it's not quite the opposite. It's like the worst of both worlds. Because the opposite of a break is just doing the fucking work.
I would
But
say that stressing out is the opposite of a break because it is more stressful than doing the fucking work.
it is so much more stressful
So,
than
in
doing the
fact, you
fucking work.
are putting yourself in more stress rather than less stress.
So much stress. I think I left my Sculpey crap upstairs, so I'm gonna run and grab it and come back.
Okay.
Alright, you can entertain the troops while I'm gone.
Ah, yes, the troops, the many troops that we have. Just kidding. We're not the military-industrial complex. We have no troops. Speaking of the military-industrial complex, I have been quite rude to some military recruiters lately. Signed up for an art class at the community college, and apparently they sell your information to the military. So got a bunch of texts being like, "Do you want to join the army?" And I'm like, if I wanted to do that, I would have done it when I was 18. And you would have really regretted it, and so would I. So maybe let's not call me about this anymore.
I'm here.
Well, I mean, they don't call me; they text me.
What kind of confessions were you making?
I was talking about being rude to military recruiters who have been texting me because I signed up for a community college class.
Yeah, no, they don't need to do that.
So everyone would be sad if I actually agreed to join the military. Like, can you imagine? The military is not ready for this.
No, they're really not.
And I'm not ready for them.
It chilled my blood the other day when Avi was like, oh, I love the military. It's in my blood. And I'm like, well, it kind of is because, you know, your grandparents and various generations before that were military. But I don't think because he loves military games.
Yes. The army propaganda has Yeah.
It is doing its insidious work, and I felt a lot better about because my stomach seized up, and I was like, I don't think it is what you think it is. But I mentioned it to Ruth, who was in the military for 16 years, and she was like, if you need me to, I'll talk him out of it. She's like, I don't know any soldiers who want their kids to go into the military. It's not. No, it's not. It's not.
Yeah.
Like, just play the games, sweetheart. Go paintballing when you're older. Do those things that don't actually involve you killing other humans to get that rush or whatever you're after.
Yeah. Yeah, no. Well, don't worry. We'll de-radicalize him.
Or we'll
I mean,
radicalize him in the other direction.
well, yes, that.
Yeah.
What was I going to say about something and stuff and things and military and games? Oh, I was going to say that for similar reasons, Sandy will not allow Felix to watch Paw Patrol.
Yep.
Her exact words are no propaganda in this house.
So propaganda. It all right. So it's a bit of a stretch, but there's a parallel that my brain has drawn between pathological liars who figure out who you wish was in your life and then pretend to be that person until they can't keep up the pretense anymore and then they fail. And then you not only have to deal with the fallout from them turning out to be monsters, but you also, and this isn't something I've been through, it's just something I've witnessed. You get a very clear view when your friends go through these relationships. You also have to mourn the person who never existed.
Mm-hmm.
Like that person was a great person. You laughed with them. That was funny. They were helpful, and they were never real. And I feel that way about the police force in America, because you're raised knowing, because of PBS Kids and shit, that they're your friends, that they're there to help, that they're there to support the population, and then you grow up and you learn that they're being taught that we're the enemy. Well, not me because I'm fucking white, but that the population is the enemy and that they're in a battle against us and shit. And it's like, now I have to grieve. And there's no point in history when they weren't just keeping us down.
Right. I mean, the sad fact is that the American police system started with people hunting runaway slaves
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
Pinkertons, and like it's not okay. It
it's
never
not
was.
okay. It's a terrible legacy and a terrible presence. And
And a really ineffective system.
yeah.
Like, even if it was terrible but it worked, I could understand why some people might be on board. But not only is it a terrible system, it doesn't actually discourage or punish crime.
No. No,
So,
it does not. It keeps citizens, it criminalizes honest citizens,
mhm.
and it's there to maintain the hierarchy, and it's just garbage. So yeah, I'm in mourning for the PBS Kids version of police. That was
Well,
never real.
we're never real. But you know what is real is community support.
Yes,
And support for one's community is a beautiful and very sweet thing that can make a lot of difference.
it's true.
I mean, not for me because I don't leave my house, but other people's communities.
I was invited to a party tonight, and I was like, it's in Boulder, and I don't feel like calling in any favors.
Well, you couldn't have called in any favors from me because my car doesn't start at the moment.
Oh no. Are you working from
Well,
home then?
I am working from home, yes.
Okay.
So it hasn't been a major source of inconvenience, but it turns out, so you know how my trunk doesn't close?
Yeah.
It turns out there's a light in the trunk. Yeah.
Oh. Oh, that's a connection I wouldn't have thought of until it was too late.
Which is exactly what I did, is not think of it until it was too late.
Yeah.
So yeah, I put in a Starbucks order the other day and went out to pick it up, and my car went click click. I was like, fuck. There's a light in the trunk, isn't there? So, yeah, we're working on that.
Okay.
Anyways,
At least it's just
enough
like a
about.
jump that you need.
I need to jump, but the problem is there are cars parked on either side of mine.
Do you? Have you gotten a hold of Dad to find out about Solstice?
No, I did
We're
not realize I was supposed to.
okay. I texted him, but I haven't heard back. So if we're both on his case, I'm guessing the answer is probably not.
I think the answer is probably not. I think his car situation is also a little dicey right now because he's got that back window thing in the winter is not great.
Yeah, and he hates the mountains in winter.
And he does. All right.
I'm sure he likes looking at them.
I mean, we all like looking at them. They're very pretty.
They are.
Okay. Well, enough about
All
of that.
Yeah.
Chapter 1. A long expected part. No, just kidding.
That would be too cruel.
Psych. The Tower of Cirth Ungol. Sam! We missed you, Sam!
We missed you so much. Oh, I should sing this song when we're done reading the chapter.
Okay.
If I can find it.
Sam roused himself painfully from the ground. For a moment he wondered where he was, and then all the misery and despair returned to him. He was in the deep dark outside the undergate of the orc stronghold. Its brazen doors were shut. Those doors were brazen, let me tell you.
Damn. What won't they do, those brazen doors?
Just flaunting their hinges about.
Oh my.
He must have fallen stunned when he hurled himself against them, but how long he had lain there he did not know. Then he had been on fire, desperate and furious. Now he was shivering and cold. He crept to the doors and pressed his ears against them. Far within he could hear faintly the voices of orcs clamoring, but soon they stopped or passed out of hearing, and all was still. His head ached, and his eyes saw phantom lights in the darkness, but he struggled to steady himself and think. It was clear at any rate that he had no hope of getting into the orc-hold by that gate. He might wait there for days before it was opened, and he could not wait. Time was desperately precious. He no longer had any doubt about his duty. He must rescue his master or perish in the attempt. Perishing is more likely, and will be a lot easier anyway, he said grimly to himself as he sheathed the sting and turned from the brazen doors. You just gotta love hobbits.
Right?
Yeah, I'm more likely to die, but hey, at least that'll be easier.
Yeah. Pragmatism at its absolute finest.
Let's see. Where was I? Slowly, he groped his way back in the dark along the tunnel, not daring to use the elven light. And as he went, he tried to fit together the events since Frodo and he had left the crossroads. He wondered what the time was. Somewhere between one day and the next, he supposed, but even of the days he had quite lost count. He was in a land of darkness, where the days of the world seemed forgotten, and where all who entered were forgotten too. I don't even think it would take me eternal darkness to lose count of days. If I didn't have a calendar, it would take me like 5 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I'm there. It's
like that.
It's a vivid descriptor though. Like you can totally picture being there. If you've ever had like a nightmare night, especially when you're a kid, when you're not allowed to get up and turn on the light and go have a cup of gin or whatever.
A cup of gin?
when you wake up and you're laying there and you're like, okay, I'll just wait for morning, and then it doesn't fucking come, and it feels like years and years and years pass, and you don't want to sleep, but you can't make time pass. That's amazing.
I tend to have those kind of nights more as an adult because as a kid I would just scream for our parents.
Yeah.
Yeah. But also when I have those nights as an adult, I don't typically have an entire cup of gin.
I didn't say it was a large cup. You're picturing like a fucking coffee mug.
I am, yes. I'm like, are you seriously going into your kitchen and filling a coffee mug with gin and just nothing else too? Not no
Nothing else.
mixers.
Just gin. It's my safeguard against the nightmares.
You don't even drink gin.
I really don't.
Like I mean, not that you drink anything very often, but I've definitely never seen you drink gin. Anyways, yes, but the somewhere between one day and the next is a very evocative way to describe the time.
Yeah, right.
I wonder if they think of us at all, he said. What is happening to them all away there? He waved his hand vaguely in the air before him, but he was in fact now facing southwards as he came back to Shelob's tunnel, not west. Out westward in the world it was drawing to noon upon the 14th day of March, in the Shire reckoning, and even now Aragorn was leading the Black Fleet from Pelargir, and Merry was riding with the Rohirrim down the Stonewain Valley, while in Minas Tirith flames were rising, and Pippin watched the madness growing in the eyes of Denethor. Yet amid all their cares and fear, the thoughts of their friends turned constantly to Frodo and Sam. They were not forgotten, but they were far beyond aid, and no thought could yet bring any help to Samwise Hamfast's son. He was utterly alone. He came back at last to the stone door of the Orc passage, and still unable to discover the catch or bolt that held it, he scrambled over as before and dropped softly to the ground. Then he made his way stealthily to the outlet of Shelob's tunnel, where the rags of her great web were still blowing and swaying in the cold airs. For cold they seemed to Sam after the noisome darkness behind, but the breath of them revived him. He crept cautiously out. All was ominously quiet. The light was no more than that of dusk at a dark day's end. The vast vapors that arose in Mordor and went streaming westward passed low overhead. A great welter of cloud and smoke now lit again beneath with a sullen glow of red. Sam looked up towards the Orc Tower, and suddenly from its narrow windows lights stared out like small red eyes. He wondered if they were some signal. His fear of the Orcs, forgotten for a while in his wrath and desperation, now returned. As far as he could see, there was only one possible course for him to take. He must go on and try to find the main entrance to the dreadful tower. But his knees felt weak, and he found that he was trembling. Drawing his eyes down from the tower and the horns of the cleft before him, he forced his unwilling feet to obey him, and slowly, listening with all his ears, peering into the dense shadows of the rocks beside the way, he retraced his steps past the place where Frodo fell, and still the stench of Shelob lingered, and then on and up until he stood again in the very cleft where he had put on the ring and seen Shagrat's company go by. There he halted and sat down. For the moment he could drive himself no further. He felt that if once he went beyond the crown of the pass and took one step veritably down into the land of Mordor, that step would be irrevocable. He could never come back. Without any clear purpose, he drew out the ring and put it on again. Immediately he felt the great burden of its weight, and felt afresh, but now more strong and urgent than ever, the malice of the Eye of Mordor, trying to pierce the shadows that it had made for its own defense, but which now hindered it in its unquiet and doubt. As before, Sam found that his hearing was sharpened, but that to his sight the things of this world seemed thin and vague. The rocky walls of the path were pale as if seen through a mist. But still at a distance he heard the bubbling of Shelob in her misery, and harsh and clear, and very close it seemed, he heard cries and the clash of metal. He sprang to his feet and pressed himself against the wall beside the road. He was glad of the ring, for here was yet another company of orcs on the march, or so at first he thought.
Incidentally, that's the only piece of the only continuity mistake I've ever spotted in the book, because Sam never took off the ring. He was wearing it when he ran into the doors and knocked himself out. He was wearing it when he woke up, but he wasn't wearing it when he got out of the tunnel and he put it back on. So, yeah, that's a thing.
Well,
it's easy to picture him taking it off in the tunnel.
yeah, it just never says that.
Exactly.
See, and where I would think it would have fallen off is when he passed out, that it was trying to like get away, and so it got loose, fell off his finger, and he picked it up when he woke up again.
Right, that would work.
But it does not say that.
It does not say that. Just a thing to mention. Not trying to be interrupty boots.
Yes, indeed. That's something we never tolerate on this channel, is interrupting the narrative.
This channel is entirely made of interrupty boots.
All my boots are interrupty boots.
These boots are made for interrupting. That's just what they'll do.
Will do.
And one of these days, these
boots, they're gonna walk all over you, right?
Anyway, go ahead.
Okay. He thought that there was another company of orcs on the march, but then suddenly he realized that it was not so. His hearing had deceived him. The orc cries came from the tower, whose topmost horn was now right above him, on the left hand of the cleft. Sam shuddered and tried to force himself to move. There was plainly some devilry going on. Perhaps in spite of all orders, the cruelty of the orcs had mastered them, and they were tormenting Frodo, or even savagely hacking him to pieces. He listened, and as he did, a gleam of hope came to him. Excuse me. There could not be much doubt. There was fighting in the tower. The orcs must be at war among themselves. Shagrat and Gorbag had come to blows. Faint as was the hope that his guest brought him, it was enough to rouse him. There might be just a chance. His love for Frodo rose above all other thoughts, and forgetting his peril, he cried aloud, "I'm coming, Mr. Frodo." "Sam, it's not the time."
Don't be dirty. This is the cleanest story in the world. None of them even poop.
Nobody in books poops.
Rarely.
Rarely. He ran forward to the climbing path and over it. At once the road turned left and plunged steeply down. Sam had crossed into Mordor.
Dun dun dun.
He took off the ring, moved it may be by some deep premonition of danger, though to himself he thought only that he wished to see more clearly. "Better have a look at the worst," he muttered. "No good blundering about in a fog." Hard and cruel and bitter was the land that met his gaze. Before his feet the highest ridge of the Efelduath fell steeply in great cliffs down into a dark trough, on the further side of which there rose another ridge, much lower, its edge notched and ragged with crags like fangs that stood out black against the red light behind them. It was the grim Morgai, the inner ring of the fences of the land. Far beyond it, but almost straight ahead, across a wide lake of darkness dotted with tiny fires, there was a great burning glow, and from it rose in huge columns a swirling smoke, dusty red at the roots, black above where it merged into the billowing canopy that roofed in all the accursed land. Sam was looking at Orodruin, the mountain of fire. Ever and anon the furnaces far below its ashen cone would grow hot, and with a great surging and throbbing pour forth rivers of molten rock from chasms in its sides. Some would flow blazing towards Barad-dûr down great channels. Some would wind their way into the stony plain, until they cooled and lay like twisted dragon shapes vomited from the tormented earth. In such an hour of labor Sam beheld Mount Doom, and the light of it, cut off by the high screen of the Efelduath from those who climbed up the path from the west, now glared against the stark rock faces, so that they seemed to be drenched with blood. In that dreadful light, Sam stood aghast, for now, looking to his left, Geez, Tolkien, punctuate this better. In that dreadful light, Sam stood aghast, for now, looking to his left, he could see the tower of Cirth Ungol in all its strength. The horn that he had seen from the other side was only its topmost turret. Its eastern face stood up in 3 great tiers from a shelf in the mountain wall below, Its back was to a great cliff behind, from which it jutted out in pointed bastions, one above the other, diminishing as they rose, with sheer sides of cunning masonry that looked northeast and southeast. About the lowest tower, 200 feet below where Sam now stood, there was a battlemented wall enclosing a narrow court. Its gate, upon the near southeastern side, opened on a broad road, the outer parapet of which ran upon the brink of a precipice, until it turned southward and went winding down into the darkness to join the road that came over the Morgul Pass. Then on it went through a jagged shift in the Morgai, out into the valley of Gorgoroth, and away to Barad-dûr. Trying to picture this now. Like, wait, there's a road through the Morgul Pass?
Yeah.
Since when?
There always has been. It's where they turned left. If you just keep going straight, there's a pass.
Okay, that does make sense, and I think I did know that on some level, but my brain always thinks that that road ends at Minas Morgul.
Right, but no, it's that was one of the things in the Great Debate. They were talking about I think Imrahil was the one who suggested that they assault the Darkland from that pass, and Gandalf was like, "Are you fucking stupid? That will draw his attention to where Frodo is," which is the opposite of what we're trying to do. So,
Yep. Yeah. Fucking Imrahil.
Fucking Imrahil.
Yeah. They gotta stop letting that guy talk.
Yeah.
The narrow upper way on which Sam stood leapt swiftly down by stair and steep path to meet the main road under the frowning walls close to the tower gate. I still think it's really funny that we've become such Imrahil haters for no reason.
Right, and like if pressed, I would have to admit I don't actually hate him.
No, me neither. It's
Not
just
even
funny.
it's just funny. It's so fucking funny.
But it just started with us being like, wow, yeah, they really didn't lose anything by cutting him out of the movie. And now we're like,
not even a little bit. Like, this guy. Every time he starts talking, like, ooh, I'm important. Like, no, you're not.
Your entire character was summed up by Orlando Bloom going, a diversion.
A diversion.
Which remains the dumbest line in possibly any movie ever.
Well,
and I say that with all
movie.
of the love.
The stupidest line in any good movie ever, I'll give you. There's some really dumb lines in bad movies.
If you can think of one that's dumber than a diversion, let me know.
Hold my beer. You keep reading. I'll think of one.
I was going to say, that's my challenge in the next 17 minutes. Let's see. The narrow upper way on which Sam stood leapt swiftly down by stair and steep path to meet the main road under the frowning walls close to the tower gate. As he gazed at it, suddenly Sam understood, almost with a shock, that this stronghold had been built not to keep enemies out of Mordor, but to keep them in. It was indeed one of the works of Gondor long ago, an eastern outpost of the defences of Ithilien, made when, after the last alliance, men of Westerness kept watch on the evil land of Sauron, where his creatures still lurked. But as with Narhost and Karhost, the Towers of the Teeth, so here too the vigilance had failed, and treachery had yielded up the tower to the Lord of the Ringwraiths, and now for long years it had been held by evil things. Since his return to Mordor, Sauron had found it useful, for he had few servants, but many slaves of fear, and still its chief purpose, as of old, was to prevent escape from Mordor. Though if an enemy were so rash as to try to enter that land secretly, then it was also a last unsleeping guard against any that might pass the vigilance of Morgul and of Shelob. Only too clearly Sam saw how hopeless it would be for him to creep down under those many-eyed walls and pass the watchful gate. And even if he did so, he could not go far on the guarded road beyond. Not even the black shadows lying deep where the red glow could not reach would shield him long from the night-eyed orcs. But desperate as that road might be, his task was now far worse. Not to avoid the gate and escape, but to enter it alone. His thought turned to the ring, but there was no comfort there, only dread and danger. No sooner had he come in sight of Mount Doom burning far away than he was aware of a change in his burden. As it drew near the great furnaces where in the deeps of time it had been shaped and forged, the ring's power grew, and it became more fell, untamable save by some mighty will. As Sam stood there, even though the ring was not on him, but hanging by its chain about his neck, he felt himself enlarged, as if he were robed in a huge distorted shadow of himself. This is not what they meant by natural male enhancement.
No.
This is unnatural male enhancement.
It's so unnatural. Aw, man. It's losing a foot.
Oh no, did the leg go again?
No, just the shell. Shoe.
Boo. Okay.
The leg's okay.
Well, good. It's one piece of hair will not stay on my face, I swear. Okay. He felt himself, it was a huge distorted shadow of himself. He felt that he had from now on only two choices: to forbear the ring, though it would torment him, or to claim it and challenge the power that sat in its dark hole beyond the valley of shadows. Already the ring tempted him, gnawing at his will and reason. Wild fantasies arose in his mind, and he saw Samwise the Strong, hero of the age, striding with a flaming sword across the darkened land, and armies flocking to his call as he marched to the overthrow of Barad-dûr. And then all the clouds rolled away, and the white sun shone, and at his command the Vale of Gorgoroth became a garden of flowers and trees, and brought forth fruit. He had only to put on the ring and claim it for his own, and all this could be. In that hour of trial, it was the love of his master that helped most to hold him firm. But also, deep down in him, still lived unconquered his plain hobbit sense. He knew in the core of his heart that he was not large enough to bear such a burden, even if such visions were not a mere cheat to betray him. The one small garden of a free gardener was all his need and due, not a garden swollen to a realm, his own hands to use, not the hands of others to command. And anyway, all these notions are only a trick, he said to himself. He'd spot me and cow me before I could so much as shout out. He'd spot me pretty quick if I put the ring on now in Mordor. Well, all I can say is, things look as hopeless as a frost in spring. Just when being invisible would be really useful, I can't use the ring. And if ever I get any further, it's not going to be nothing but a drag and a burden every step. So what's to be done? He was not really in any doubt. He knew that he must go down to the gate and not linger any more. With a shrug of his shoulders, as if to shake off the shadow and dismiss the phantoms, he began slowly to descend. With each step, he seemed to diminish. He had not gone far before he had shrunk again to a very small and frightened hobbit. He was now passing under the very walls of the tower, and the cries and sounds of fighting could be heard with his unaided ears. At the moment, the noise seemed to be coming from the court behind the outer wall. Sam was about halfway down the path when out of the dark gateway into the red glow there came two orcs running. They did not turn towards him. They were making for the main road, but even as they ran they stumbled and fell to the ground and lay still. Sam had seen no arrows, but he guessed that the orcs had been shot down by others on the battlements or hidden in the shadow of the gate. He went on, hugging the wall on his left. One look upward had shown him that there was no hope of climbing it. The stonework rose 30 feet without a crack or ledge, to overhanging courses like inverted steps. The gate was the only way. He crept on, and as he went, he wondered how many orcs lived in the tower with Shagrat, and how many Gorbag had, and what they were quarreling about, if that was what was happening. Shagrat's company had seemed to be about 40, and Gorbag's more than twice as large. But of course, Shagrat's patrol had been only part of his garrison.
Oh, for fuck's sake. Ugh.
Oh, the tail now?
Yep. Hang on. Since it's broken, I'm going to have to do something about it. Clearly, this is not my the best work ever.
I feel like this figurine has just been fighting you every step of the way.
Fucking Radon.
Fucking Radon.
It's a bitch. By the way, I fixed the problems that I had with the some of the elementals that did not please me.
I've been seeing that intermittently on Instagram. That's awesome.
Yeah. You know what? We're gonna just give him some back spine things. Let it dry.
Sounds like a plan. Shagrat's patrol had only been part of his garrison.
Yeah.
Almost certainly they were quarreling about Frodo and the spoil. For a second Sam halted, for suddenly things seemed clear to him, almost as if he had seen them with his eyes. The mithril coat, of course. Frodo was wearing it, and they would find it. And from what Sam had heard, Gorbag would covet it. The Orders of the Dark Tower were at present Frodo's only protection, and if they were set aside, Frodo might be killed out of hand at any moment. "Come on, you miserable sluggard," Sam cried to himself. "Now for it!" He drew Sting and ran towards the open gate. But just as he was about to pass under its great arch, he felt a shock, as if he had run into some web like Shelob's, only invisible. He could see no obstacle, but something too strong for his will to overcome barred the way. He looked about, and then within the shadow of the gate he saw the two watchers. They were like great figures seated upon thrones. Each had 3 joined bodies and 3 heads facing outward and inward and across the gateway. The heads had vulture faces, and on their great knees were laid claw-like hands. They seemed to be carved out of huge blocks of stone, immovable, and yet they were aware. Some dreadful spirit of evil vigilance abode in them. They knew an enemy. Visible or invisible, none could pass unheeded. They would forbid his entry or his escape.
I'm like, what is the story behind those?
I was just about to pause and ask that. Like, okay, those do not sound Númenorian.
Nope, they sound Sauron-ish.
They do. They sound very Sauron-ish. Like, but he doesn't typically do a lot of arts and crafts.
No,
I mean, I
indeed.
suppose he is known for doing some, but
Just jewelry making.
Just jewelry making, not usually stone carving.
Right? But there was an evil will of malice in the watchers on the bridge at Minas Morgul as well. I wonder if the same craft or technique.
Maybe it was the Witch King's work.
Ooh, I like that. Until we know otherwise, that's my headcanon, was the Witch King.
Yeah,
does statuary. Does evil sentient statuary.
In his spare time, people are like, where's the Witch King? He's in his studio carving another statue.
The Dark Lord hath commanded another door warden to be made.
Or
killed.
Or my personal preference, Sauron didn't command shit. He didn't care. The Witch King was just like, look, I gotta have a hobby, bro.
Yeah.
I'm gonna make some real creepy statues. Are you cool with that? And Sauron was like, yeah, fine.
Yeah, sure.
Enjoy. Have fun.
Yeah.
They'll alert at the presence of enemies. Yeah, great, cool, absolutely.
Yep, do that.
He's like not even listening, like, sure. Whatever you say, honey.
Okay, dear.
Okay, let's see. Hardening his will, Sam thrust forward once again and halted with a jerk, staggering as if from a blow upon his breast and head. Then, greatly daring, because he could think of nothing else to do, answering a sudden thought that came to him, he drew slowly out the phial of Galadriel and held it up. Its white light quickened swiftly, and the shadows under the dark arch fled. The monstrous watchers sat there cold and still, revealed in all their hideous shape. For a moment, Sam caught a glitter in the black stones of their eyes, the very malice of which made him quail. But slowly he felt their will waver and crumble into fear. He sprang past them, but even as he did so, thrusting the phial back into his bosom, he was aware, as plainly as if a bar of steel had snapped to behind him, that their vigilance was renewed. And from those evil heads there came a high, shrill cry that echoed in the towering walls before him. Far up above, like an answering signal, a harsh bell clanged a single stroke.
I'm sorry,
All
but
right.
the thought of the two captains whose men are slaughtering each other, having this huge set to, and then the watchers are like, "There's someone at the gate," and they're like, "Uh-huh, I care."
Right? Exactly. They're like, ah, no, no, no. That's a trick. That's probably one of your people that went out and came back in just to fuck with them,
Just to
just to
fuck
fuck
with
with
us.
us and distract us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
By the way, I pay attention while we're in Mordor. A few different characters are called Snaga. Snaga means slave.
Oh.
Yeah.
I was just watching an episode of a show called Actually, which is on College Humor.
Hmm.
And it's the host reads a slightly wrong fact about some sort of nerdy media or property, and then the guests compete to correct them, and you have to start your correction with actually.
Actually.
and and one of them was talking about, I forget, it was a Lord of the Rings fact, and I forget the accurate part, but the inaccurate part was saying that Gandalf fought the Balrog Gothmog, in Moria, and
Gothmog was one of the orcs. He was the lieutenant of on the fields of Pelennor.
in the movies, yes.
No,
Apparently, in the Silmarillion, there's a Gothmog who is a Balrog, but he's like not the same Balrog that Gandalf fights.
is he the
But
Balrog
yes,
that Glorfindel fights?
yes, yeah,
So, so our filmmakers actually like went into the Silmarillion and borrowed a name.
I think so. But
That's
I
kind of
also
fucking
like to
awesome.
think that that orc was named after the famous Balrog.
That makes sense. That would be freaking awesome. He's birthed in his weird little stone womb, and they're
And
like,
they're
"We're
like,
gonna
what?
name you
Let
after
us
this
name
historic hero."
him. Right. And then every time he messes up in training, his sergeants are like, the real Gothmog would never do that.
Never.
And that's why he's such a dick, because he's got a massive inferiority complex.
You're right. Like, uh, shoot, like Van Gogh, who wasn't a dick, but he had a lot of issues stemmed from being named after his dead brother.
Oh, I forgot about that. Yeah, that would cause some issues. That's a
Right.
different set of issues, but equally issuey.
Right. He chose not to be an orc, but he was still pretty troubled.
Yeah. Indeed. Yeah, you should never name a kid after their dead sibling. That's just fucked up.
That's just fucked up.
Like, no, you're not replacing the other child. No.
You're not some kind of weird like he always felt like he was like a cheap knockoff.
Mm-hmm. Which is terrible because I mean, like,
No matter
he
what he
wasn't.
achieved, he felt like his dead brother would have done it better.
That's, yeah, horrifying.
Yep.
It is 7:59. Have you thought of a dumber line than a diversion?
I had a pretty mind.
What is that from?
The girl with the gold boots.
Okay, well, I haven't watched that one either at all or in a while. I'm not sure, but
So, on your birthday, at some point, I don't know what year this was, I wrote, "In a dark spider tunnel, cruel webs in my hair, rank stink of a shelob permeating the air. Up ahead in the tower, I saw a sinister light. The ring was heavy and my sight was dim. I had to go in and fight."
Welcome to the Tower of Kirith Ungol.
Such
Such
a
a nasty.
ugly place. Oh, and there they stood in the doorway. I felt the watchers hate, and I was thinking, Sam, my lad, hustle your ass or it might be too late. So I lift up the star glass, and I brandish the sting. There were bodies in the corridor. I heard something.
Dying in hordes in the Tower of Cirth, Ungol.
Oh. The orcs are sick and they're twisted. They killed themselves in the end. They got a pair of shitty captain orcs that talked like friends. How they fought in the courtyard, slash, strangle, and stab. Some fought because they're told to. Some fought because they're bad. All right, I'll have to come back to it, after we've gotten through this scene, but at least I know where to find it.
It's good that you know where to find. I'm thinking about the chorus and yeah. Welcome to the Tower of Cirth, Ungol. Such an ugly place, such an ugly face. Keeping your friend at the Tower of Cirth, Ungol. If you conquer fear, you can find him here.
Corpses everywhere. Is my master there?
Yep, good stuff. Good stuff.
Thank you. Yeah, it writes itself is what happened.
It really does.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I will see you next week.
Yes, indeed. And I might be in Boulder. I don't know.
Okay, well, keep me posted.
Will do. I love you.
I love you too.
Cuidado.
Llamas. Well, that went very well.
We did it. Yes, like a well-oiled engine.